Hey guys, Angie at Block 81 here. Thank you so much for your interest in our latest product, Instagram Quote Shapes. Here's a quick tutorial on how to use it. Alright, so here I am with Instagram Quote Shapes open inside Photoshop. Over in the Layers panel, you can see that we have 12 folders or groups, an artwork layer, and the background layer. The background layer really doesn't make a whole lot of difference if your artwork is actually going to cover the entire space. If your artwork isn't going to cover your entire space, then that's fine. You can always play around with the background layer, delete it, or add more layers between your main artwork and the background layer. That's all up to you. Now, one thing that you may notice when you open up this Photoshop file is that you may be hit with a warning about fonts. I've included several fonts already in here. They're not included with the download because some of them are proprietary, they require licenses and all that jazz. So just pick a font that is going to work best for your quote. Okay, so getting into these different quote shapes. As you can see, we've got groups 1 through 12, or layers 1 through 12 here. And if I hide and unhide, then you can see all the different ones. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick one here, layer number 12 here. So I'm going to open up this group. You can see that there are two subfolders or two subgroups, text and graphics. And you'll notice that this is the same kind of structure for all of the layers. You'll have a text and a graphics folder. And within each one of those, you'll have the editable components. So in the graphics, what this is, if we turn this off, you can see that the actual shape for this image goes away. And if we turn it back on, it comes back, obviously. And the text is pretty obvious. If I click that, it goes away. If I click that, it comes back. And really, in this one, there's only one layer of text. Before we get to that, we obviously want to replace this placeholder artwork here. To do that, we're using a smart object. So where it says artwork here, I'm going to double click, and that's going to open up the actual artwork. And you can see I've got two layers, a rectangle and a pattern. If I take the pattern away, the rectangle shows up, and if I take the rectangle away, then it's completely blank. I've already got an image prepared for this, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that and drag it into Photoshop. And I'm going to resize it so it fits properly. And I'm going to center it a little bit more according to the photo. And then I'm going to delete this pattern layer and this rectangle layer because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to readjust this a little bit. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I can move it up more. Okay, that looks good. So now that I'm done, you can see that there's an asterisk, so that means I need to save this file. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to close it. And as you can see, it's placed into the artwork layer. Okay, so the artwork is pretty much done. I mean, there could be a lot of different things that I could do here, but I'm pretty much done with that layer. So now I'm going to replace the text. Now, on most of these quotes, there's only just the quote. There's no author or source for the quote. But I've already got that lined up, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So the quote is this one here. And I'm going to replace this, and I'm actually going to change this font here in a second. So I'm going to change this font to something like, let's say it's Droid Serif. Okay, so then I want to actually make this align left. Actually, let's keep it centered. I'm going to reduce the font size a bit. That's perfect. Okay, now I want to add more text. I want to add the author's name or who this quote is from. I'm going to drop that in here, and I'm going to reduce the size of this font. Now I could do this as a different layer, but I'm just choosing for brevity, I'm just choosing to put it in the same text layer. So I'm actually going to change the color now. Maybe we'll make that, let's see here. Maybe we'll make that this red color. See how that looks. It's a little bit difficult to read, but we'll just leave it there for now. And then this text, oops. This text we will make a different color as well. So maybe we'll do a darker version of this. Actually, let's keep it to that. See how that looks. That's really difficult to read. Okay, so we'll change this color back to something darker that's easier to read. Just make it this gray color. Okay, perfect. Now that we've got the text in place, I want to kind of play around with this a little bit because I don't want this little point here to cover too much of the image, even though it's semi-transparent. So I'm going to open up the graphics layer, and this outer rectangle, if I click on that and I have my move tool, you can see that I can move it around. And I could just drag it and place it there. The problem with that is that it overlaps the border here. Now I could just get rid of the border, I could hide the border, and I could resize this and do whatever I want. That's totally up to you. But in this case, I want to keep the border, and I want to make sure that this particular shape, this little chevron arrow thing, doesn't get overlaid or doesn't run past the border. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the A key on my keyboard, and that gives me the direct selection tool. And I'm going to click on this corner here and then shift click on the other corner. And what that does, it gives me the ability to move both of those at the same time. So then I'm going to, while I'm holding those and dragging, I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard, and that keeps it straight. So I'm just going to bring that up a little bit here. Then I'm going to hit escape and then hit V on my keyboard to go back to the move tool and drag this back down. Now it's a little bit too far down, so I'm just going to nudge it with the arrow keys on my keyboard. That looks really good there. So now we've got this text overlapping, and I want to fix that. So I'm going to go back into my text layer, and I'm going to adjust this. So you can see that's getting cut off. So I need to make this a little bit smaller here. And there's too much spacing in there, so I'm going to go over to my paragraph palette, or excuse me, my character palette, and I'm going to drop this down here. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so now that I've extended that, I can see the name of the quote source. I'm going to reduce that font size just a little bit more, and I'm going to change that color to this color here. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to hit Command Return on my keyboard to save that, commit those changes, and nudge it down a little bit, and that's all there is to it. So now that I've got that done, I can do a couple of things. If I want to save this for Instagram, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit File up in the menu here, Export, Export As. And from there I'm going to choose JPEG and leave everything else alone and hit Export All. And that's going to save this particular image onto the desktop or wherever it is you need to save it. And from there I'm going to transfer that file onto my phone and put it on Instagram. So there you have it. That's just one example of what you can do inside this Photoshop file to create really cool images for Instagram. I hope that was helpful. Be sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.